I want to say a couple of things about this topic because I was going to call in sick on Thursday night when I thought about, oh my gosh, I got to talk about this, Soren, I can't do it. But I want to just name a couple of things about when we talk about plant medicine and Buddhism and where these things are going, or psychedelics. I don't really use the term psychedelic. I use the term entheogen, plant-based medicine. But I want to name that this is controversial. I have been working with plant medicine for 10 years, and I've been on the hot seat for probably 9 of those years in my Buddhist communities. And so I want to tell a few stories tonight. I want to talk about why I, as a Buddhist teacher, and I spent years training with Jack Kornfield and meditating and all these different practices, why would I get involved in something like this? Something that seems like drugs. You know, you hear the word drug a lot. I don't ever use that word either. Plant medicines are very different. I'll explain a little bit more about that. But anyway, controversy. It's controversial for a few reasons. One is that if some of you are here and you're in a 12-step program, this can seem very upsetting. It's like, what is going on? Why are people talking about this? I've heard, I want to meditate. I want a clear mind. So there's that whole group of people, which I have a lot of compassion and understanding about. Also, within my Buddhist communities, we have what we follow, what are called precepts. And one of the precepts is about intoxicants. So is this an intoxicant? Is it not? So there's why I've been on the hot seat, you could say, within communities. What is spring doing in South America? Is this good? Is this Buddhism? And I just embrace it all. Like, let's just embrace the controversy. Like, yes, it is controversial. Yes, maybe people would call this an intoxicant. Yes, yes, yes. And our world is kind of in a bit of a crisis, wouldn't you all say? I mean, looking at the environment and politics. So we're at the 12th hour here. All means need to be looked into. So this is something that has just helped me. And so I want to talk about my own experience a little bit and why I got into this. So I want to just kind of paint a picture about what happened. And this was about 10 years ago. And I was on a 3-month meditation retreat working with Joseph Goldstein, who's a very well-known meditation teacher. Was a teacher of mine for many years. As a teacher in training, I had spent years prior doing long retreats, 3-month retreats, 6-month retreats. I had been all over the world practicing. So that was my path. So on this particular retreat, it was about 2 months into a silent retreat, dead of winter, so quiet, all in silence, 100 of us wandering around this building, sitting, walking, sitting, walking. And I had the classic meltdown. Now, in the office of this particular retreat center is a red telephone. The red phone symbolizes it all, doesn't it? A red phone. You pick it up. There's some beautiful person on the other end that goes, "Where are you? How can I help? I'm coming to get you." Because they know where the red phone is, so they know where you are in that moment. And they come and they bring you cookies and ginger snaps or, crackers and talk you down off the ledge of wherever you are. And so years of being near the red phone, behind the scenes of the red phone, here I was picking it up going, help! I didn't know that I was having a lot of trauma coming up in a way that was so overwhelming, so destabilizing, that I couldn't be with it. And my teachers couldn't be with it either. I wasn't eating, the ground looked like the ocean, I had ringing in my ears, and I was explaining all these symptoms of this terror that I had never known before. And it was in my body. This wasn't mine. This was like, I can't be with this. So my teachers were all looking at me like, well, just go back to the hall. Just sit with it. I was like, no, we're beyond that. Okay, I've got to look for another option. So I went back to California, very destabilized. I left the retreat early. I was sick. I couldn't eat. I was like, what is going on with me? If this is ego disillusionment, wow, I don't know if I can do it, right? I don't know what's happening. And a friend of mine who was a psychologist said, there's this plant that I have been working with to heal from my own childhood trauma. I would like you to come to a ceremony. Now, I have a very traumatic background. I wrote about it in my book, and there's abuse and abandonment and everything that you could imagine, right? It's all in there. So I knew that I had that, but I had thought I worked it out. And so that night, I go to the ceremony up in the mountains, and I have what is the most incredible night of my life. For 8 hours, I had so much insight, so many things I understood that I didn't understand. And that's when we're in those states, when we don't understand what's happening or how to move forward, we get stuck. So that led me to going to Peru. Right then and there, I said, I'm going. I started traveling there, doing retreats, 1 month, 2 months in the jungle. And I was utilizing the years of Buddhist wisdom that I had acquired, and that was key. I could sit, I could be aware, I could do compassion practice, I could let go, and all these teachings were in my mind, and what I started to see was not only was I healing my trauma, but I was accelerating something very important. Now, when you're working with all of these plants, set and setting is key, right? I'm sure many of you have had a bad trip, maybe at Disneyland or somewhere like that, right? We did it all wrong, right? What I have learned, in addition to the Buddhist wisdom, is I have learned from the indigenous people. That is very key. I'm here to really share with you about the power of learning from those people who have carried plant medicine. Rather, it's the people carrying peyote or the grandmothers in Oaxaca, Mexico with the mushrooms. They've been using psilocybin for hundreds of years healing. This isn't a new phenomenon that started in the 50s. This is ancient. This is the earth itself offering us help right now. So I started, when I was in Peru, the indigenous wisdom was really important to me, and the meditation was very important. What I had learned from the Dharma, they need each other. That's the acceleration point. The setting, I thought, wow, what if I made a setting that was immersed in Buddhist wisdom? Right? That we were meditating before the ceremonies. We were talking about emptiness and egolessness, and we were studying core teachings, knowing that all of that would influence the actual ceremony. And it has, and it has continued to. It's been my 10-year experiment, and it continues to grow. So when I talk about plant medicine, I talk about ayahuasca, I talk about wachuma, talk about peyote, I talk about the plants that are coming from the earth. We call them entheogens. I don't refer to them as drugs. They don't relate to that. These are medicines, and the science is really showing how beneficial they are. From healing depression to autoimmune disorders to cancers to people with suicide attempts on their life. I've seen it all in the last 10 years. I've helped people. I've worked in the jungle for a year. Crazy idea I had, but I wanted to go in. I'm all in on this. And so meditating, leading us into transformative states is another aspect of what I want to talk about. But first, I want to give you a little bit of a taste. I'm going to show a little video clip here of at a ceremony, and this is what we're doing. We're sitting on the earth. You'll hear the insects because this was taken straight out of a retreat that I was leading. So I want you to get the setting of where our meditation is happening. This is not in laboratories. This is with Pachamama. This is on the earth. We're being sung back into remembering, to interconnectedness. So we'll just go ahead, and if the text could go ahead and play the clip.
Yoraya be pontatira, shinaya be pontatira. Ayikano, kayano, ki eakano, bewagi. Agoni ki konogi rang agoni ki reboti ani na te ke pange ra ani ka no ke pange ra ani sama na te bo ra ani sama ni we bo ra yoda sama bo ti vi ra yoda na po bo ti vi Sinaka no boti vida, sinaho vi boti vida. Ani sama pau ti bo pau ina pai. So ke we me kai ni ra, bo ke we me kai ni ra.
So this is how we would start our meditation for the evening. And so we might sit 5, 7 hours, music playing, songs, singing, nature, we're on the bank of a river. And this is kind of what I've learned from the Indigenous people, is about the role of the ceremony, the container. This is something that they have known. This is something in their bones, that you don't just take something. You have the set, you have the setting, you have guides, you have a team of people to support you. The work that happens that you were hearing about from Joan and Michael Pollan, this disillusionment, it needs care. In some way, we are like patients who are sick, and we need to get help. We need to wake up and realize what's happening. I think one of the pieces that I'd like to highlight the most, there's so many things I could say from just all these years of working with people and working with my own heart and mind, is this idea about interconnectedness. We have to get this. And I feel like in some way I'm an ambassador of the earth now. I feel that if we really understand the science of interconnectedness, that the trees are talking to each other and we are part of that. The earth itself is giving us everything she has now. All these plants are rising with this wave of wake up. And one of the things that I can appreciate about working with these plants is we get that feeling of interconnectedness, not mentally, but in the body. Right? This is the acceleration point right here. It's like, oh, I could read about interconnectedness, or I could feel one with the whole jungle, all living systems, right, in me. This fundamentally changes how we walk in the world. It changes how we view reality and our place in it. Also, working in these settings is an acceleration of the heart, which is also something that in years of working in Buddhist communities, I've met so many well-meaning Buddhists. So many who say, after years of meditating, Spring, my heart is still closed. I don't feel that feeling anymore. So there's communities within this world that feel stuck. You know that feeling of stuckness, right? You're doing it, but these patterns are still there. We have an opportunity to use power tools, to use them skillfully, to use them honoring where they come from, honoring ourselves, honoring the earth, in settings that are conducive to healing. And that's the word I use. I don't use a scientific terminology. I dropped out of college, right? I feel like the last 10 years has been more college than I've ever needed. All right, but so this is why I wanted to just share a little bit today, and why Soren invited me. He said, I just want a different view. I want a perspective of somebody new, somebody who's been in the trenches for years doing this. So although it's controversial, I feel excited about where I'm going with my organization and the work that I'm doing, and even my own heart and mind. I'm waking up with everybody else. And so I love Michael Pollan's book, and I love all this new work that's emerging, and you're going to have someone else come on and have another amazing presentation on this topic. But these plants are worthy of our respect. They're not for everybody. Like Michael said, we can't just put it in the water. But for those who have the right background, who are ready to move a little bit faster, these can help us as a humanity, as a culture. This is something that is there for us. And the Buddhist part, understand something about Buddhism. Historically, the Buddha sat naked on the earth for 6 long years. He wasn't in a lab, right? He wasn't somewhere fancy. He was naked on the earth. And in his last moment of awakening, he actually touched the earth to bear witness. So our healing process is a healing internally, but also an environmental one. How we are in the world, how we are with each other. Also, these lessons that I've learned about transformation have taught me how to love other beings and love myself in a way I never knew before. I thought I understood about love and the heart. I'm a baby. I still feel like that every time I'm humbled. I'm always humbled when you work with this, because a lot of it is getting your ego out of the way so that the heart can move forward. And this heartfulness, this love, this compassion, I don't know what our world needs more now than that, but it needs to be embodied wisdom. It needs to be the wisdom that we move on the planet differently. We walk differently. We speak differently. We honor things in a different way. So I think that's all I want to say about all of this right now. And it was very vulnerable, and I did it. I met my vulnerability. Thank you. Thank you very much.